News broke earlier today that Judge Rebecca Robinson dismissed all charges against Dr. Ebony Parker, who was she was charged with 8 counts of felony child endangerment stemming from the shooting of first grade teacher Abby Zwerner. Now, she already went through a civil trial and lost, was found civilly responsible. And in fact, a $10 million judgment was made in that case. But this is a new kind of thing. This is, with our, what would we call this? Our epidemic of school violence starting, at least in my memory, with Columbine. Maybe it was before that, but that's the first time it registered with me as a young man. This epidemic of school violence, we're wrestling and we're negotiating with how do we stop this violence and who do we hold accountable? This case is a novel case. It was a new kind of prosecution against Dr. Parker, which leads us to the question of the day. And I want your answer in the live chat and in the comments, because this case was thrown out, and we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of it. The question of the day is, should states create laws specifically targeting school officials who ignore threats to student and staff safety? If you'll remember, Abby Zwerner was shot through the hand and into the chest by a 6-year-old first grade student who had a history of issues. So that's the question of the day. Should states create these laws? Because Judge Robinson, as a judge of the law, tossed the case, saying that the prosecution didn't prove their case, and that if the state of Virginia wants to charge school officials and other officials in these shootings, then they should pass a law to be able to do so. Should states create laws specifically targeting school officials who ignore threats to student and staff safety? Please put your answer in the chat. And then let's see, what are we going to do today? We've got a pretty big show. We're going to go over the Ebony Parker criminal trial. We're going to get into some reporting on what happened today. We're going to watch a couple videos, including some testimony from Dr. Parker when she was during the investigation by the school as to what happened. We're going to watch some video of the judge's ruling. We're going to get into her grand jury indictment and the report that the grand jury passed down, at least part of it. Of course, we're going to get into 3 questions. We got some headlines in the Noel Rodriguez Alvarez case and the Luigi Mangione case. And we've got a little good news having to do with the art world, which makes me pretty happy. So what do we have? We got 10 gallons of show to put into... Well, I always mess that up, Javi. You're going to have to edit me out. We got 10 gallons of content to put into a 5-gallon show. We better get started. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. Thank you so much for tuning in. Definitely tell me where you are tuning in from in the live chat and in the comments. Thank you for watching on YouTube and on Spotify and listening throughout the world on your favorite podcast provider. We're everywhere. Thank you very much for your support. If you are into true crime and you like to skip past the fluff, the sensationalism, and get right into the nitty-gritty of cases, you found the right channel, and I'm really glad that you did. And this case has both a plethora of nitty and a metric butt ton of gritty. There's just tons here. But before we get into it, I want to thank you guys. You'll notice that I put a goal on, I think I did anyway. Yeah, it started. The goal started. I put a goal for super chats on this one because we're going to talk about children in this one. And I know, I mean, anytime we talk about, like when we talked about Noel Rodriguez Alvarez, yeah, it becomes demonetized. And we're talking about children tonight, and so I think that there's going to be some demonetization. So thank you very much for considering monetary support through a super chat or a super sticker. Of course, there are tons of other ways to do that as well. If you go to gavinfish.com and look at the support me tab, you'll find all the great ways to support me. Another great way to support me is this, the final day of the giveaway of the Omega Speedmaster. This is your last chance to win the Omega Speedmaster that we're giving away in partnership with fanofthem.com. All you have to do is go to fanofthem.com/GavinFish or click on the link in the description or show notes, and that will take you to the page where you can buy some merch or some limited edition, collectible or digital download, and that will automatically enter you to win this giveaway, and it supports me. So, for which I am super, super grateful. The deadline is tonight. Yesterday, I was mistaken. I've only lived on this planet for 50 and a half years. I mess up on the ante meridio and the post meridio. I said it would be 11:59 a.m. It is not. It is 11:59 p.m. tonight, Pacific time, that this ends. So go to fanofthem.com/GavinFish and good luck. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Okay. I think the best way to talk about this case is let's start with the victim. Okay. Oh, no, I gotta check in on where you guys are tuning in from. I've been skipping that. Put GF in your comments, and I gotta check in on your answers to the question of the day. So let's do that first. Let's make sure everything's going. Wendy is checking in from Newfoundland, Canada. Very grateful that you caught a show. Thank you very much to you, Wendy. And lots of love to our neighbors to the north. Elizabeth McMasters, Esquire, says, Gavin, finally out of the pool and watching from Suffolk, Virginia, which is 21 miles from Richneck Elementary School. Well, one, I'm glad that you had some time in the pool, and thank you for joining us. It's always good to see you, Elizabeth. Redondo Beach says, Gavin, do you know what or why the teacher didn't take the backpack away from the student? Not victim blaming, but it seems a bunch of people knew and didn't do anything. Don't know this case very well. So we're going, I think, yeah, and I don't take that as victim blaming at all. There were a lot of mistakes made in this case that could have saved Abby Zwerner from being shot. Luckily, she survived. She was shot through the hand and in the chest. Even after she was shot, she took her children to safety before she passed out. There were so many mistakes in this one, and it makes me wonder if it boils down to people not wanting to get in trouble by, breaking a policy or something like that, right? And it kind of feels to me, after reading the documentation, that teachers need to be empowered in their own classrooms, man. That's what I think. In this case, if Mrs. Werner, who is only 25, and look, she's a 25-year-old teaching first graders, right? And I remember my sixth grade teacher turning 26 when I was in sixth grade, and I remember thinking he was so old. But that is a young person. That is a young person at the beginning of their career, and wanting to do the right thing, being challenged with a very challenging student here with some real problems. I don't know if she just wasn't empowered to do that. Why? There's so many questions. Why, right? So we'll get into that. Thank you very much. Great question, great comment. Elizabeth McMaster says, yes, in this case, Parker knew about the gun and did absolutely nothing. That's the way it seems to me. And like, she was told about it, said, well, mom will be here soon. We'll let her figure that out. The Only Mooney says, yes, I thought there was already a law in place. You know, a lot of there have been some other prosecutions that are kind of novel. Like the mom in this case was prosecuted for child endangerment, gun possession, drug possession. She pleaded guilty to it. So parents, and there's one other case that is slipping my mind, but parents are being held accountable. But in this case, we've got a school administrator, Dr. Parker. She is an educated, accomplished person, and apparently just made a series of bad decisions, including not talking to her principal about it. She was vice principal there. Ohio is in the house. Thank you very much for being here. Lakeland, Florida is here. Elizabeth McMasters again says, Gavin, I did some research on the judge. She was a public defender here in Suffolk, Virginia, and then in Hampton, Virginia, she was appointed to the JDR bench and was elevated to the circuit court in August 2025. And I actually have no problem with what the judge did today, other than her choice in lipstick. Other than that, which is, Gavin, that's terrible. Javi, you can't let me say stuff like that. Wanda, do you have a want that sound? Did you forget your trombone today? Okay, Wanda doesn't have her trombone. I need a want whenever I make mistakes like that. Judge Rebecca Robinson, I have no problem with her decision today. As the judge of the law, I think that she did a good job, but maybe that's just me. I'd love to hear your comments. Newfoundland is here, Liverpool here, Central Texas, Tracktown, USA is here. Oops, it just refreshed on me. Give me a second. We have got sunny San Jose. England is in the house. Good to see you. Marion, North Carolina. South Lake Tahoe. Roseville, California. Roseville, you say. Roseville, you say. Back in my neck of the woods, I am an Orangevale kid, raised in Orangevale, and of course went out to Roseville mostly to go to the Gallerias. The reason I would be in Roseville, but I actually had an office there for a while too when I was working for LH Labs. Hickory, North Carolina is there. Wendy says yes, absolutely to the question. There should be a law. Hanover, PA is here. Let's see. Cooler by the Lake says, Gavin, I think the entire faculty were afraid of this child. This is a good comment. There was consensus on the best, or was there consensus on the best way to deal with him? Was this school the most appropriate place for him? Seems somebody dropped the ball. Yes, this was a problem child. From everything that I read in the indictment investigation report, I guess is what it was, this child had issues. And I think maybe they were afraid of the child. Maybe there was an element of fear. Like, oh man, whenever I have questions about the way schools handle things in my reporting, I call my 6th grade teacher because after he was a teacher, he was a principal, then he was a superintendent. He knows these things. He's a good person to call. But my goodness, yeah, it seems like, one, they were afraid of the child, and two, they were afraid of the consequences of dealing with the child. And he was a violent child, right? He would like grab teachers' necks and strangle them and stuff like that, right? And oh, this is going to be Javi. Should I, Javi? A child like this is the poster child, and I'm not saying that this is the right answer, but is the poster child for corporal punishment. Like there are some people that just need to be punched in the face, and they don't respond to anything other than violence. They are so violent to their core. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with corporal punishment. I'm just saying that if I were to make an argument for corporal punishment, this would be my poster child. He attacked teachers and administrators and other students. He was violent. Why was he there in the first place? But, that's one of those things where I think that I think that there could be a good argument for corporal punishment based on this. I'm not saying that I agree with that, but my goodness. Erie, PA is in the house. Emmy says this case reminds me of the Georgia high school shooting. Redondo Beach says exactly what I was thinking. Were people worried about violating some rights or something? Yeah, were they afraid of being sued? Oh, yeah, thank you, Jules. Thank you. Yes. A Texas jury found the Vivaldi school officer not guilty for 20-plus child endangerment counts. If they're going to charge, they need to pass laws specific to school bangings. I forgot that made it to a jury. Okay. Yes, Tina May, 6-year-old, shot a teacher in the chest. And Gavin, the father of the Georgia high school case. That's the one. Thank you, Emmy. Appreciate that. A couple more comments before we go. Thank you, Emmy. Excuse me, just one second. Woo! Big sneeze. What about mandatory reporter laws? Yeah, I wonder if those could apply. Let's see what else. Here we have Barb saying, do we know what has happened to the child since? I do not know, and the child is a juvenile, so I don't think that we will know. Barbara says, please say why the lipstick comment was crass. It just was wrong. I just shouldn't have done that. Melbourne is here. Thank you very much. Indie Girl, thank you. I do feel better after that sneeze. Thank you, Mooney. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's, where should we start? I have it on my agenda. I thought about this beforehand. Yes, this is where we're going to start. We're going to start with a report from the New York Post from Priscilla DeGregory, written today. Headline, Judge drops criminal charges against Virginia school administrator who allegedly failed to stop first grader from shooting teacher. A judge has, this is a New York Post article, so they're going to use adjectives that probably shouldn't be included, but okay. A judge has sensationally thrown out criminal charges against the Virginia school principal who allegedly failed to stop the first grader who shot a teacher in her classroom, calling the indictment a mashup of legal theory. I think using the word sensationally is improperly used here. Come on, that's yellow journalism. I think, but she did throw out the criminal charges. That's all you have to report, New York Post. What the crap? Okay, former assistant principal Ebony Parker sobbed in court after Judge Rebecca Robinson tossed the charges mid-trial. Robinson found that Parker was not criminally liable for teacher Abby Zwerner getting shot by a 6-year-old student. Here's a picture of Abby still with bandages on her hand. Prosecutors had wrapped up their case Wednesday afternoon, yesterday, with the jury told to return to the Newport News courtroom Thursday morning, today. But Robinson said the 8 counts of child neglect that Parker faced for allegedly failing to intervene after reports the boy brought a firearm to school on January 6, 2023 is not a crime under Virginia law. The judge noted it would be up to the legislature to make any changes. And this is why I think it's probably appropriate what Judge Robinson did. I think that it's completely appropriate. Legislature, write the law, right? And unfortunately, most of our laws come because somebody says there ought to be a law, right? Most of the time somebody says there ought to be a law. I disagree. There probably shouldn't be a law. But in this case, I agree with the judge. Well, the judge didn't specifically say that. In this case, there ought to be a law, and the legislature should do something about it. Robinson concluded that there is no precedent for what is before the court, and this type of case hadn't gone to trial before. The boy's mother, Deja Taylor, pleaded guilty in 2 cases to child neglect and gun charges after her son took a 9mm handgun from her purse and brought it to Richneck Elementary School. The mom is serving nearly 4 years in prison. Robinson said she was unclear about the legal principles prosecutors used to charge Parker, including whether the 8 counts were for the bullets in the gun or for the children in Zwerner's classroom at the time of the shooting. The judge said that if it were for the bullets, the number of counts would have needed to correspond to the number of bullets discharged, not the amount of ammunition left in the gun. The boy only fired 1 round that hit Zwerner in her hand and chest, leaving fragments of the round in her body to this day. Quote, "Those legal theories do not fit plausibly with the theory of the legal statute," Robinson said. "Therefore, I do grant defense motion to strike on all 8 counts of felony child abuse and endangerment." What happened that day was awful, the judge said, declining to comment further on her opinions before the incident. Okay, so I'm not going to finish that article. It is, you can, because we're going to actually watch the judge's comments, but a link to that article is included below. Okay, but so that we know what happened, I want to take you to this document, which is the special grand jury report on the investigation of the January 6th, 2023 Richneck Elementary shooting. We're going to go down to page 7. I think it's, yeah. Okay. This report is available online. I found it very easily. But let's just talk about what happened that day, and then we're going to watch a video of Dr. Parker during an investigation that the school did, and then we're going to look at Judge Robinson's comments, okay? So this from the report, okay. January 6, 2023, Section 1, reports made, lack of response, and the shooting. The child, and they had talked about the child's past, like there are some major issues here, okay? But upon the child returned to school on January 6, 2023. He was taken to lunch by Ms. Zwerner from 11:15 to 11:45. He immediately started showing signs of aggression, including threatening to beat up a kindergarten student and staring down a security guard and moving towards her like he was ready to pounce. Ms. Zwerner went to Dr. Parker. Dr. Parker is the person who is on trial. Went to Dr. Parker's office. Dr. Parker was sitting at her desk, typing at her computer and looking at the screen. Ms. Zwerner told Dr. Parker that the child was in a violent mood. Dr. Parker did not respond. Dr. Parker did not look away from her computer screen. Dr. Parker did not acknowledge Ms. Zwerner's presence. Only after Ms. Zwerner walked away did Dr. Parker say to Ms. Kovac, who was standing there, tell her that she can call his mom at any time and she can pick him up early. While saying this, Dr. Parker was sitting next to her office phone and Ms. Zwerner was returning to line up her students to return to class. Ms. Kovac was then walking in the hall when 2 students ran up to her saying that the child had a pew-pew in his bag. Ms. Kovac took the initiative to enter Ms. Zwerner's class, where the child was sitting. Excuse me a moment. His backpack was next to his desk. She sat next to him and asked him if he had a pew-pew. He said no. She asked if he could look in his backpack. He said no. Ms. Kovac continued to sit with him for approximately 45 minutes for his lesson and watch him. She did not, however, search his backpack at this time, and I think this is a mistake. If there's some school policy that says that they have to have a 6-year-old's permission to look in their backpack, that policy needs to change. She had 2 students say that it was there. and for some reason, she asked a 6-year-old's permission to look. Okay. Before recess started, the child asked if he could change his shoes. Ms. Kovac said yes and left the room to report Dr. Parker per protocol. Ms. Kovac told Dr. Parker what the students had told her, that the child would not let her check his backpack and was acting unlike his normal self, where he would usually be throwing his backpack around. Dr. Parker said, "I know," to him throwing the backpack around, and then said nothing else about it. When Ms. Kovac finished reporting it to Dr. Parker responded with orders for Ms. Kovac to return back to oversee state testing by 1 p.m. Dr. Parker did not inquire further with any questions, took no further action, and did not appear to show concern. Around 12:20 to 12:30 p.m., and again, this is what the grand jury is saying, right? And she was found civilly liable, which is a lower bar. She was found civilly liable. But okay, around 12:20 to 12:30 p.m., Ms. Zwerner was lining up students for recess. Ms. Zwerner saw the child put on a gray, oversized, zip-up jacket with a hood. He then rummaged through his backpack and put both hands in his pockets. Ms. Zwerner did not see the child remove his hands until later that day. Ms. Zwerner texted Ms. Kovac what she had observed. Ms. Kovac, without Dr. Parker, then went to search the child's backpack. She did not find anything. Yeah, he had removed it from the backpack. Hello. So apparently she can search the backpack without permission. She just didn't. Ms. Kovac went back to Dr. Parker and told her that she had searched the backpack and found nothing. She also explained that Ms. Zwerner had reportedly observed the child put something in his jacket pocket and was not taking his hands out of his pockets. Dr. Parker responded, "He has little pockets." Ms. Kovac responded back that the child had a coat on. Dr. Parker took no further action. In addition, Ms. Foster, the principal, was not informed of these events as she was in and out of meetings all day. The testimony from all parties was that they reported the firearm to Dr. Parker and not Ms. Foster. The child was now at recess with 30-plus other small children running around the playground with a firearm tucked into his jacket. The child was constantly running behind a rock wall with his friend, where the teachers were not able to see them. After recess, Ms. West called the friend over to her classroom to find out what was going on. The friend was visibly scared and shaking. He said the child would hurt him if he told her. She encouraged him to tell her. He said that the child had a pew-pew and that the child had showed him the bullets. Ms. West then spoke on the phone with John Sims, who was temporarily covering the receptionist's lunch, where Ms. West relayed that what the friend had told her. He told Dr. Parker, who responded that the backpack had been searched. My goodness. Ms. West then had Rolonzo Rawls, a counselor, come to her class and speak with a friend. The friend told Mr. Rawls that the child had bullets and said that the child had threatened him if he told anyone. At approximately 1:40 p.m., Mr. Rawls, now the third person and fourth time this message had been relayed, went back to Dr. Parker and communicated that the child either had a pew-pew or ammunition at least. He asked if the backpack had been checked, or if it had been checked, if the child's person could be searched, a decision that could have changed the course of the day. Per the school's written policy in the school administration manual, principals and school security officers, under the direction of the school administrators, may search students and students' property when there's reasonable suspicion to do so. Under these circumstances, Dr. Parker had the authority, per school policy, to either give permission or to conduct a search of the child. Dr. Parker said no. Dr. Parker said hold off. Dr. Parker said his mom would come and pick him up soon. Once again, Ms. Foster was not informed of this decision or consulted whether or not to search the child's person. Dr. Parker took no further action and did not report the firearm, the search of the backpack, or the request to search the child's person to Ms. Foster, who was the principal, right? The child was not searched. The child was not removed from class. The police or the SRO was not called. Mr. Rawls went to Mrs. Werner's class and told her he was not given authorization to search the child. The child was at his desk by himself, staring into space, with a loaded pew-pew tucked into his jacket. Ms. Werner was then left alone with 16 first-grade students in her class that day, of which one had been reported by 3 different students over the course of 2 hours to have a pew-pew. At 1:58 p.m., Ms. Werner was sitting at the reading table. She saw the child turn his whole body towards her. The child, for the first time since before recess, removed his hand from his pocket holding the pew-pew. He pointed it directly at Ms. Werner and, at less than 6 feet away, pulled the trigger and shot her. Ms. Werner looked down to see a pool of blood forming. The child continued to stare at her, not changing his emotional facial expression as he tried to do it again. The pew-pew had jammed due to his lack of strength on the first shot, inhibiting him from shooting Ms. Werner or anyone else. The pew-pew had a full magazine with 7 additional bullets ready to fire, if not for the firearm jamming. Let me explain that just a little bit. Okay. This was a Taurus 9mm, and I'm not an expert on these kinds of things. I have been an enthusiast my whole life. I've been a person that uses firearms my whole life. But it's not like I'm a trainer or a firearms expert or anything. So I just want to get that out of the way. But this is what I think probably happened. A semi-automatic weapon like that uses the escaped gases coming out of the cartridge in order for it to cock back, and then a spring cocks it forward, and that is the automatic motion, right? This doesn't need to turn into a history lesson, but I think it was the Colt 1911 that was the first gun that did that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. No, because there were repeat. No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, if the operator of that pew-pew does not have the strength to hold it steady, as that action goes to move back, the rest of the device, trying to keep it YouTube friendly here, also moves back, making it so it's less likely to complete its full action, thereby getting jammed. So probably what saved Ms. Werner's life is the fact that it was a 6-year-old pulling the trigger. Now, I'm not saying that always happens. It sometimes they can, it could be that gun was also dirty, right? That it wasn't well oiled. There could be a whole bunch of different reasons why. It could have been that the load was small or something like that, right? That the amount of powder in the cartridge could be a combination of many things. But that, I think, for me anyway, it's the fact that a 6-year-old was holding it that couldn't handle that recoil that made the gun jam, which saved Ms. Werner's life. That's just me, though. Okay? At the loud bang of the pew-pew, a small 6-year-old girl sitting at her desk tried to run but was pulled back by the headphones on her head. In terror, she was able to remove them and run out. Another 6-year-old boy at the back of the class all of a sudden felt as if Ms. Werner was far away. To this day, he will not talk to anyone about what happened. All the children ran across the hall to Ms. West's classroom. She proceeded to into lockdown procedures with 45 children huddled in her room. The friend then said, "I told you. I tried to keep you safe. I told you." Okay, back in the main office. Ms. Foster was in her office with 2 children, and Dr. Parker was outside her door. At the receptionist desk was a grandmother of a student in the building, the receptionist, and a small boy sitting in a chair with his feet dangling. A woman suddenly rushed in saying, "Someone's been shot," and ran into Dr. Parker's office. Dr. Parker went into her office and closed the door until police arrived. Ms. Foster also closed her door. The receptionist, confused by the lack of information and lack of direction, found her composure and called 911 and lockdown over the PA system. The small boy started crying, to which the grandmother, neither employed by the school or trained in lockdown procedures, jumped into action. After knocking on the principal's door saying there was a child out in the main room and both Dr. Parker's and Ms. Foster's door remaining shut, the grandmother comforted the boy by telling him she won't let anything happen to him and to go hide in a place where no one can find him. The boy squeezed his little limbs in a tight space between the copier and the wall and sat all alone waiting until the grandmother retrieved him when it was confirmed to be safe. In the meantime, Ms. Zwerner had walked from her classroom down the hall and into the main office where she passed out in front of Ms. Foster's door. Ms. Foster opened the door, saw Ms. Zwerner, and shut the door again, telling the two kids in her office to get into the bathroom. Ms. Foster then emerged from her office while the grandmother applied pressure with a rag to Ms. Zwerner's wound until the paramedics arrived. The special grand jury will note that there were some contradictions in the testimonies as to the above noted proceedings in the main office and as to who was involved. However, this grand jury finds that the most credible testimony was that Dr. Parker and Miss Foster acted in the manner described above. Down the hall, the second grade class heard a bang. Since there were no doors, the second grade teacher could see students running across the hall. She then gathered two classes of 7- and 8-year-old children and brought them into the hall and down the hall in order to access the safe room. While sitting in the safe room, children were crying while one boy tried to comfort his classmates, telling them it was going to be okay. These are second graders. After his father picked him up from Richneck that day, the boy slept with his parents in his parents' room for almost a year so that he could feel safe. The police response. The Newport News Sheriff and Police response was prompt, efficient, and admirable. At approximately 2 p.m., 2 sheriff deputies were in the area when they received a call over the radio of a shooting at Richneck. From the time Deputy Blythe heard the call to arriving at the school was less than 3 minutes. By 2:05 p.m., Deputy Blythe and Deputy Briggs had run to the door, guns drawn, and ready to intervene when they were immediately stopped. Due to the door buzzer system being broken, they could not access the school. They banged on the door, they called the intercom system, and even considered trying to shoot out the glass to gain access. After almost a full minute waiting and banging at the broken door, a custodian roaming the halls saw the deputies and let them in. Just prior to this, Ms. Kovac had emerged from her classroom and heard the shot. She rushed in to see Ms. Zwerner's classroom where the child said to her, "F you, I shot my teacher." The firearm was on the ground. She pulled him away from it, sat in a chair, and wrapped her body around the child and held him until law enforcement arrived. When law enforcement arrived, they observed the situation, secured the firearm, and asked Ms. Kovac if she was okay. The child became agitated and punched Ms. Kovac in the face. He was removed from the building by law enforcement where he and his parents were interviewed. The child admitted to accessing the firearm from his mother's purse, the same place he had accessed marijuana. And I think I'll stop it there. That gives us, like the grown-ups, the adults in this, just, maybe they're just afraid. They feel disempowered. They don't know what to do because they might be held liable for something. Maybe what we need is some sort of immunity for teachers who, I don't know. Oh, immunity is tough. I don't know. Maybe we need something like that though, that would make it so that teachers could feel empowered to act. Yeah, Burn Dog says, "Hey Gavin, what is going on at home to be like this for a 6-year-old?" Right? Emmy, I see you're off topic. I don't want to talk about it. Chloe, sir, hello from Michigan. Chloe, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mooney says, "Gavin, wait, what? There is no law that makes it illegal to bring a pew-pew to school in the state of Virginia?" No, no, there's definitely a law against that. We have kids arrested in my middle school for bringing knives to school. Yeah, there's definitely a law for that. The issue here is, did Dr. Ebony Parker, through her neglect, is she criminally liable? First of all, her alleged neglect, right? Because the report that we were just reading is a grand jury investigation report. It's not proven in court. But yeah. Real Happy saying, exactly, Gavin, preach. Jules and me saying they were scared of his mom. Yeah. Patricia Burns, I don't know if it is. I don't know. I don't know what politics mixes into this or not. To me, she was just negligent. She was so worried about the other stuff that was going on that day that when she was reported that a kid was armed, she didn't immediately jump into action. And I don't know. Maybe there was some personal animus between the Dr. Parker and Ms. Zwerner, right? Maybe they just didn't like each other. It's a workplace. People don't like each other. That reminds me. Okay. I was talking to an old teacher. This is hey Wanda, this is a bit of a tangent. I was talking to an old teacher and I was telling this teacher, I'm gonna try to de-identify here a little bit and say, I was talking to an old teacher of mine when I was a wee lad, and telling this teacher that there was another teacher that I never liked. And now that I'm in my 50s, I feel like I need to extend grace to that teacher. And and the teacher I was telling this to said, "Why? That teacher was an a-hole." And that reminded me, like, it's a workplace, right? People get along, people don't get along. Was Dr. Parker annoyed at Ms. Zwerner because maybe she was coming in talking about all the things that the child was doing, and like maybe Dr. Parker was like, "Well, you just do your job." Maybe it was something like that. I don't know. But crazy. Italia says, I work with violent children, unfortunately, since caregivers take the easy route sometimes to avoid confrontation. It's an issue. Yeah, that makes me super grateful because all kids press boundaries, right? Push boundaries. Made me super grateful for a tough mom. Like, I don't think I was ever a kid that was going to turn out like this. But anytime, like, my mom is not a confrontational person. But when confrontation finds her, she does not mind. And that's the way Kimberly and I are, right? We love our kids. We don't want to have confrontation with our kids, but the moment it comes, guess what? you know? Yeah. This is all just so crazy. Great comments. Let me just keep on scrolling to what you are. Yeah, Wendy, why didn't his mother check his book bag before school? I don't think that it doesn't appear to me that she was all that worried, all that present, right? Frida People says, in my eyes, this is inexcusable, even if not strictly illegal. The fact that Ms. Parker didn't even acknowledge Ms. Werner's presence, much less her stated concern, points to something really petty. And you said it way better than I did. Yeah, something petty. Hey, Dom's mom, 19 months. Thanks for being a fanatic. Gavin, have they said what they plan to do with him? Can't imagine they'd put him in a juvenile detention with a bunch of teens. Heartbreaking story. I don't know what happened to him. He's a juvenile. We don't know. Crazy. Is that my phone? Do you guys hear that? I've got something going off. It's one of my children's iPads. Yeah, I don't know what happened to this child. Crazy. Yeah, I'd rather be, says Just Ducky, I'd rather be disciplined for searching a child and bag and not finding a pew-pew than not look at all. The father of Colt Gray hasn't been sentenced yet. Thank you, Emmy. See if there's anything else. Okay, I think I'm caught up on all of your comments. Thank you very much. Okay, next thing that I want to do, going back to the old agenda, is to go to this video right here. This is about a 16-minute video. We're going to go a little long today, but this is about a 16-minute video, and this is from court yesterday, before the case was tossed. This is a video of a Zoom call. The audio is kind of tough, but understandable, and it's played in open court. This came from the Virginian Pilot from their YouTube channel. There's a link in the description to their YouTube channel. And at first, it's like this scene that we're looking at right here. It's looking at a video monitor that was on the wall, but it moves to a laptop so that we can see it better. But this is from January 9th, 2023, where the school is doing an investigation and are questioning Dr. Parker. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it a play. Rooney, check your earphones here. I did bring the level down to about 6 dB down, which is what I broadcast at, and hopefully it won't blow any eardrums. Here we go.
Okay. So, Dr. Parker, let's start with Friday. Were you given any knowledge prior to the actual shooting that the student had a weapon?
I was told that students reported that the student had a weapon in his backpack.
Do you know? Go ahead.
So, Miss Kovac, what else his name? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, so Miss Kovac was the one who informed me of this. And she said that she had already asked the student, is there something in your backpack? And he said no, but she had brought it to me. The class was about to go outside to recess, so I said, well, when they go outside to recess, we can check his backpack. I was in the midst of the winter growth assessment, printing off tickets and such, so I didn't go into the classroom with her. When she came back, she says, there's nothing, I didn't see anything in his backpack. And I said, okay. And she said, but, what about in his pocket?
Of course, he had put it in his pocket to go out to recess.
And I said, well, I don't know. Are they going out to recess? She said, yes. She was also my person that was helping me with testing. So, I don't know if she went outside or not, but there was a comment that said, well, we watched him closely. Assuming she meant herself and the teacher. And I said, okay. And then I went on with testing.
So was all of that conversation from Ms. Kovac all at the same time, or did she come back to you with the comment about we watching him?
She came back.
Okay. So, do you remember approximately what time it was when she reported to you, the students reported that he had a weapon?
They were going outside for recess at 12:20, so it was right before that. So I don't know how far between it, but I know from the time that she said it to the time that they went outside for recess.
I know that we're Monday morning quarterbacking here, but I still like keeping that in mind that we weren't there in the moment. They were in the middle of testing, right? It's a stressful day for everybody. they've got this child that's violent, has just come back from a suspension because of violence against his teacher. But apparently testing takes precedent on this. But I'm like, I cannot believe you guys that you, Dr. Parker, behaved this way. In the moment, how did you behave this way?
It wasn't very long.
Okay. Did you report this to Ms. Foster?
I did not. She was in a meeting with a military counselor that we were supposed to be getting, and I was supposed to be going into that meeting at 1. The meeting was at 1, and I didn't make it into that meeting. But because I was in the midst of testing, I don't leave my office when we're in testing to maintain, the testing tickets and the security of that. And so I had not spoken with Ms. Foster.
Okay. So can you tell me, did anyone else come to you before the shooting to tell you that the student had a weapon?
So,
does it make you wonder how many times they hear threats that a student has a weapon or something, and they find out that he didn't, or she didn't? Does it maybe feel like I'm trying to extend as much grace as I can here, But does it feel like, oh, this is just kind of day in and day out, it never turns out to be this way, so I'm not going to worry about it? Or does it just feel that she's just naturally just kind of laissez-faire about it? Take it to the principal. Somebody's saying there's a weapon on campus. Go to the principal, right? It's weird.
After we checked his backpack and there was nothing there.
And you say we?
Well, I say we because I said check it. So, but Ms. Kovac went in to check it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But I said we because she came to me to ask, should we check his backpack? Do we check his backpack? Mr. Rawls, after that situation was settled, came back into my office and he said, hey, did you hear what they said about? I said, yeah, I heard. I said, but we checked his backpack. And again, I'm still using we, but it was Miss Kovac. I said, his backpack was checked. We didn't see anything. And he says, oh, okay. Did you check the person? And I said, ooh, no, we didn't. And I remember looking at the clock and it was 1:40. And this particular student is on a modified schedule. So I said, his mom is due to come here soon. So when his mom comes, we need to inform her of what was said, what we did, and then she can, we'll let her go through the rest of his things and check it. He nodded his head and he left. But those were the only two.
Okay. So help me understand, what is your understanding of what should have taken place from the first notification that you received about the student from Ms. Kovac possibly having a weapon?
What we did in previous times before, we had 2 other students who also reported to have a weapon. And we, asked the student, do you have something? If they say, no, we do have someone else come in with us to look in their backpack. But we never searched a student. So because we didn't, Ms. Clark didn't see anything in the backpack, then we didn't do anything from there. His mother does come in every day, and we have a conversation every day. So I was waiting for mom to come in.
So in the past protocols of what you've done, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've brought the student into your office, and you, along with who else?
So the first time it was Mr. Rawls, and then the second time it was an incident of a parent already called the police because the report was given to her from her son. So she had already called the police. So the second time it was the police was at the school.
Okay, all right. Had Mrs. Warner on that Friday come to you and express concern about the student's behavior, or did she express that she thought the student had a weapon?
No. So Ms. Warner never said that she thought that the student had a weapon, and she never said to me directly that it was reported to her that the student had a weapon. So I was about to get the PA.
You know, though, 3 children said it. If Miss Werner didn't know, she should have been told, right? 3 children said it to, 2 adults, and 4 adults knew about the threat, if I'm remembering correctly. Why was Ms. Werner not told about it, if that's the case?
Session of the testing started, and she came into my office and she said, is being extremely defiant today. And she says, if he hits me, I don't know what I'm going to do. So
Yeah. Pummel the little sucker. Yeah.
I acknowledged what she said, and I said, oh, okay. And then she left. So I told Miss Kovac, because they were going to go back with the kids, I said, if she feels that he's being, uncontrollable, she can't control him, tell her to call his mother so she can come and pick him up early, is what I said. But no, Miss Zwerner never came to me and said anything about her fearing that the student had a weapon or that she felt unsafe. She didn't. She didn't say that to me.
Okay, all right, take your time. Had Ms. Warner, prior to Friday, ever expressed to you that she had concerns or felt unsafe with this particular student?
No, so I have been on a modified schedule since the beginning of the year. His acting out was he's extremely defiant, and he does the exact opposite of what he's asked to do. And it was making it difficult for her to do instruction in the classroom. So we sat down and we made a modified schedule. We had things in place. So somebody was getting the bus. He was going to Miss McBurnett's room to do a social story. He was then transitioned to Miss Kovac for a 15-20 minute small group session before he spent time in his classroom. And Wednesday, he had asked to come to the office, and he said no. Ms. Zwerner said no, he couldn't come to the office. And he took her phone and threw it down. So it cracked her screen. Miss Foster and myself, I sat in the meeting, but Miss Foster had, facilitated the meeting that afternoon with Miss.
That's redaction.
So, hey, you don't know the damage that it is to the teacher's phone. We'll let you know. She understood that she was prepared to pay for it and everything. So, in hindsight, that evening, I spoke with Miss Foster, and she said, I really think I'm gonna call his mom back because he should have gotten a consequence for what he did. And I said, well, yeah, but I was following her. So I said, okay, she called back, was not in school Thursday. And then when he came back Friday, those were the events of Friday.
Okay, all right. So just to be clear, at any point in time prior to Friday that Ms. Warner ever reported to you that she had concerns about the student or about her safety with that student?
No. The concerns were around the student and his behavior. Never has she said, I feel unsafe.
So when she made the statement to you, if he hits me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Can you tell me where that came from?
So that Wednesday, where I feel it came from was that Wednesday when he took her phone and threw it down, he went to a buddy classroom, which was Miss West. And what Miss West reported to Miss Newton was that he was like pinching at her, but I did not get I didn't get the full report of that incident. So when she said that, me knowing that that was what was reported Wednesday, that's where I think that came from.
Okay. Okay. Was there ever a comment made to the teacher that she was overreacting to the student or his behavior?
That kind of question seems to be a CYA kind of a question for the school district, doesn't it? She's asking, she's basically blaming Ms. Werner. Did she ever feel unsafe? Did she ever express it? It's so dumb.
No.
Okay. When prior to Friday, had anyone, Ms. Werner or anyone reported to you their concerns about the student or about their safety or possible safety of others in the building because of that student? Okay. So staff stating that administration knew, what is your response?
Your Honor, could we pause the video?
Yes, you can pause it. Yes, sir.
Can I have just a moment to talk?
Administration knew. What is your response to that?
I don't know. I don't know because what I did and what we did in the moment with how to support
I did what we
with
did.
him is what I thought the teachers, Ms. Warner was asking for. Okay, just I can't get instruction done. He doesn't sit down in his space. He won't follow directions. Those were the things that Ms. Warner were reporting to me.
Okay. I want to go back real quick.
But 3 children have said that he was armed. Come on.
I'm clear on something. Ms. Kovac, check the bag. What is Ms. Kovac's title?
She's our reading specialist.
So help me understand why Ms. Kovac why did you direct Ms. Kovac to check the bag?
So, in the midst of testing, I don't remove myself from the office. And when the conversation we had was, should we check his bag? And the reason why we waited till they went out to recess is because I couldn't leave to go and check the bag. So it was my director that said, Ms. Kovac, when they go out to recess, check his bag.
Okay. Did you talk to your resource officer that day?
She was not there.
Okay.
The resource officer, the actual, I did call, no. I didn't call. And our security officer, Ms. Lee, she leaves every day at 2 o'clock.
She leaves at 2, so Ms. Lee was.
I mean, I'm sorry, not 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And she comes back after McIntosh's dismissal, for our dismissal. So she works in the morning from 9 to 12. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And that's the end of the video. I'm just going through a couple of Wendy Karras saying, was she fired? I think that she and Ms. Foster are gone. And of course, Abby Zwerner has not returned to work, to my knowledge. Yeah, she's no longer the VP. She cost the district $10 million in a wrongful, it's not death, but basically a negligence case. So anyway, I don't think that there is a question that what Dr. Parker and the rest of the administration did was wrong. I don't think there's, I think not only in hindsight, but in the moment, what they did was not right. There were so many mistakes made, right? And if Mrs. Werner didn't even know that she was in that much danger, how is she supposed to react, right? And she reacted freaking admirably, man, taking the other children to another room to keep them safe, having a gunshot wound to the chest and hand in the moment. I mean, she's a hero. But everybody else, man, especially the administration, there's no question in my mind that what they did, they were completely wrong in how they reacted. Now, the question is, does that mean that they, or she, specifically Dr. Parker in this case, is criminally liable? And the judge today said no. And here is that video. It's about 11 minutes long. Here we go.
Having considered this case for 4 days and listened to the motions of counsel and the division of labor in a criminal jury trial. So in that division of labor, in those legal proceedings, questions of facts go to the jury, questions of law go to the judge. A question of fact asks what happened, and it requires evaluating evidence such as the witness testimony and or physical proof. Questions of law ask how does the law apply to those facts, and requires interpretation of statutes, precedents, and constitutional rules. And that's kind of legalese, but breaking it down. The judge decides the question of law, which is what law applies, procedure, and
Absolutely correct.
courtroom. In this case, a criminal jury, the jury would decide the facts, which is what happened. To give an analogy, because this case doesn't put itself well to analogy. Somebody is given a ticket for speeding, 70 and 65, but they're stopped in the parking lot. The jury decides the question of fact. Was that driver actually going 70? The judge will decide, does the speeding law apply in the parking lot? So that's the way to wrap your mind around the difference between question of law and fact, which can get quite convoluted. With the question of facts being resolved by the trier of fact, which in this case is the jury, and their job would be to weigh the strength of the evidence and the credibility of the witness, and judges resolve the questions of law. And what would be put to the jury in this case was whether or not Ebony Parker is guilty. And that would be the question of fact. I do all this, say all this, because the distinction between law and fact can become convoluted, and they can be mixed. It can be a mixed question of law and fact. The Supreme Court itself has acknowledged that it can be an imperfect science of where is that dividing line, but identifying that line is important, critically important, whether or not it's a question of law or fact. Question of fact goes to the jury, they make the decisions. Question of law, it stays with the judge. And I guess, for purposes of the parties' understanding. That influences the courtroom decision maker, the appellate review, how evidentiary rules are administered, and the application of precedent, which I would say there is no precedent for what's before the court of an administrator being criminally charged and tried for what has been presented and what happened that day, January 6, 2023, at Richneck Elementary School in Newport News. This court is finding that it is presented with a question of law, which requires resolution by the decision maker. The decision maker on questions of law are the judge, and whose decision is that, and my decision is that this is a matter for the court, and the court is of the legal opinion that this is not a crime, not under the common law of Virginia, nor under the code of Virginia. And the court is going to explain its rationale and ruling. With that being said, if it's not a crime under the common law, nor under the code of Virginia, should the legislature wish to make it a crime, then they will create specific statutory language to do so. When reviewing the statutory language, the court is bound by the plain meaning of that language and must give effect to the legislature's intention as expressed by the language used, and unless a literal interpretation of the language will result in manifest absurdity. So now I look at the statute. Virginia Code 18.2, 371.1. What the indictment charges here is under paragraph B of that statute. It reads, any parent, guardian, or other person responsible for the care of a child under the age of 18 whose willful act or omission in the care of such child was so gross, wanton, and culpable as to show reckless disregard for human life is guilty of a Class 6 felony. The indictments in this case don't address specific individuals, but they list students. The court finds that what has been presented to it is a mashup of legal theory, and it is not clear, based upon the plain meaning of the statute, that these facts are crimes. In the court's analysis, the court is asking, is the crime that Ebony Parker didn't follow Newport News policy and procedure, of which was put into evidence, which would have required two people to search the person of JT, either two administrators or one administrator and one security officer, of which the security officer was on site at a different school performing their duties, and the principal, the other administrator present, that's known in this proceeding, was in scheduled meetings during testing.
I agree with that.
Is the crime that Dr. Parker didn't direct a search of the child's person after being informed that the book bag was clear? Are the 8 counts of the indictment based upon the number of children in the room when the firearm went off? Are the 8 counts of the indictment based...
I'm just going to pause. This is a great comment from Redondo Beach, and I know that there's some typos there because you're doing it quickly, but Redondo Beach says, this is exactly why we need defense attorneys, to keep an eye on the state. Everyone deserves a fair trial, especially when they're accused and charged with crimes that don't exist on the books. And for Judge Robinson here, I don't disagree with what she said. And at the same time, like, two things can be true at the same time. I think that Dr. Parker should be criminally responsible for this. But I also agree with Judge Robinson that if the statute isn't on the books, then it's not on the books. That's a question of law, and the legislature needs to get busy. So great comment. Thank you, Redondo Beach. Let me go back to, there we go.
Upon unfired bullets remaining in the firearm, which would be contrary to established case law, as they have to be discharged. Is the delayed reunification and reckless disregard for human life? Is it the emotional trauma of the exposed child who was in the classroom? I believe initials for KS. Is that the reckless disregard for human life? Is it the fearfulness, bedwetting, and hypervigilance of all the children in school that day that comprises the reckless disregard for human life? Is it because JT wasn't expelled prior to January 6, 2023 due to his previous behaviors, which presumably would be in the province of the prior principals, Dr. Goodman and then Ms. Foster? Or is the crime the lack of heightened response from Ebony Parker due to her awareness of prior issues with JT? The court is unclear. And as previously stated, those legal theories do not fit the plain meaning of the statute. If they are to amount to a crime, then the legislature will need to codify it. Therefore, I do bring defense motion to strike in whole on all counts, all 8 counts of felony child abuse and endangerment under indictment CR, the indictment number 24999-541-01308. So those matters are dismissed. I want to add, my ruling today is based upon legal principles only. It is inappropriate for me to give my personal thoughts or express sympathy or concern, but it's understanding what happened that day was awful. That is agreed upon by all. The criminal matter before me does not call for me to discuss the Newport News school system or make political observations, and I will not comment on optics or engage in speculation. For the media who has contacted this court constantly over the past 2 weeks, there will be no further comment from this court, except to commend the attorneys on both sides, Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Teague, for zealously advocating their respective positions and treating this forum with the utmost decorum. So from the attorneys, how would you like me to inform the jurors who are still coming in the building that they're discharged from the duties for the...
We can actually call that good. And I don't disagree with Judge Robinson here. And I appreciate her commentary that it's inappropriate for the court to discuss anything about this beyond saying what happened that day was horrible, right? Will not be making any comment further except to say good job on the attorneys for advocating for both their sides. This is the end. Now we're going to tell the jury, right? It's that simple. Now, I think it is incumbent upon the states and the federal government, in the case that something like this becomes a federal issue, which I can't imagine that it would, but it is incumbent upon the states to pass laws, to codify laws, as Judge Robinson said, that make what Dr. Parker did a crime. It is negligence, and to break, they need to break the boundary of what is the word that I'm looking for? It just completely left my brain here. Immunity. That like in the civil case, so many defendants were dismissed because they enjoyed immunity, but they were negligent. It was only Dr. Parker that didn't have that immunity. So anyway, I think that the states need to do something about that. Mooney, thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you also to Jilly21. Hello from Sacramento, fellow Sacramentan. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Jilly. Let's see if there's any other comments that you got. Put GF in your comments if you want me to see it, but that's where I stand. I'm thankful that Ms. Zwerner is still with us. I am sorry that Ms. Zwerner had to live through that experience. Sorry for all the children and their parents that are dealing with the fallout of that. It's a tragic case, and maybe the biggest tragedy. It's not the biggest tragedy, But an added tragedy is that there isn't a law that made what she did illegal. Jules and me, thank you very much for the super chat. You guys, thank you for, oops, pushed the wrong button there. Jules and me, thank you for that. And Beechnut says, how is this not a crime? Negligence causing harm is a crime. No, that's not what she was charged with. Right? The indictment, let's go to the indictment. Let me bring this to you. The indictment is 8 counts of CA. That's how they brought the case. 8 counts of CA. So, and, under the plain meaning of the law, the judge, I think, is correct. And I'm a layperson. I'm not a lawyer, right? And anytime you ask a lawyer if something is right or wrong under the law, I think it's the first day of law school they learned this phrase. It depends. So, yeah. Thank you for the super chat, Beechnut. And then Elizabeth McMasters says, I hate to be negative, but I don't see the Virginia General Assembly making such a law in the future. Yeah, it would take some real pressure, real pressure in order for the legislature to do anything. And Elizabeth says, yes, we do. That is correct. First day of law school. Hey, welcome to law school, everybody. Congratulations on your undergrad. So glad that you got into school. First lesson of the day is, I need you to repeat after me. It depends. And that's just the way because the law is not clear ever. Anytime a lawyer says the law is clear on whatever it is that they're talking about, it is not clear. That is the reason why there are arguments on both sides. It's never clear. Never clear. Okay, well, I wish Ms. Zwerner the best. I hope that she is able, I'm sure she has PTSD. I'm sure that she's having a hard time coping with everything that has happened to her, but I wish her nothing but the best. And let's go back to the old agenda. Let me just make sure that I covered everything. I did. So, and we're running late. So why don't we hop into, what are we hopping into? 3 questions.
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Guys, in this segment, you know the rules. I answer 3 questions that you send to me at 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's an email address. It's spelled out in Alpha Greco, what do we call them? Greco-Roman letters, whatever it's called. It's written in English. There are no digits, all right? THREE questions@gavinfish.com. I answer each question I get completely and honestly and unfilteredly, but I get to choose which questions, what the order of the questions, okay? Most of the time you guys are asking about me, which is fine, but I wouldn't mind a little deeper question about that. I especially like questions that people can answer in the live chat. Here we go. Question number 1 from Elizabeth. Where did you go on your honeymoon? Again, you guys are just very, very interested in me. Kimberly and I spent our honeymoon aboard a cruise ship bound for and coming back from Mexico. It was a cheap little cruise that we could afford as young folks. But let me give you advice. Anybody who's going on a honeymoon, let me just give you advice. It doesn't matter where you go. Don't even worry about like exotic locations. It doesn't matter where you go. Just spend a week or 2 together. Call it a honeymoon. And enjoy yourselves. Be just you two. Don't like have a stay-at-home honeymoon where everybody knows you're home and then they like show up. You don't want that. But it doesn't matter where you go. Question number 2. What would you say are your vices? Everyone has them, LOL, says Kelly. I do have my vices. My major vice, honestly, is sugary fizzy drinks. I love them. I like them fully sugared, fully leaded, fully fizzed, and I drink way too much of them. Now, I have not had anything but water since August 28th. It does not mean that I won't have a fizzy drink again. It just means that I haven't since I started taking my health a little more seriously. That kind of sounds like an alcoholic going, yeah, I might fall off the wagon. But anyway, that is my main vice, is the humble and delicious Big Gulp. And of course, when you go to get a Big Gulp and you know that you're going to slam yourself with sugar, well, you got to get something salty too. So you got to get a bag of chips. And then you're like, well, if I'm going to have a bag of chips, maybe some donuts. Maybe some Hostess donuts, the chocolate flavored ones. When I was a kid, I liked the powdered sugar ones, but I've really leaned into the chocolate as an adult. So yeah, so I guess it's beyond the fizziness. It's the convenience store snacks are my vice. Now, I'm like 90 pounds down now, guys. 90 pounds down since August. Pretty great. All right. Is this question number 3 or question number 2? This is question number 3. Shishi says, can you provide an update on the Ellen Greenberg case? I can. In her email, she asked about the parents and all that stuff. So the answer is this. I'm in touch with Ellen's family frequently. In fact, I think I called Sandy earlier today, and I think I missed her call back. So yes, I'm in touch with Sandy and Josh. There's not much of an update. The last update was that the feds got involved at some level, that they are asking questions, that they are talking to people, they are interviewing people. But nothing has changed since. And like, the feds have tight lips, man. They do not say anything. So there's not much of an update, but that is the update on the Ellen Greenberg case. Now remember, you can ask me anything. 3questions@gavinfish.com. Send those in. And while you guys are working on your answers to questions 1 and 2, where did you go on your honeymoon and what would you say your vices are? Why don't we get into some headlines, shall we?
True crime headlines.
All right, guys, we got a couple headlines I want to bring to you. Headline number 1 is Everman ISD honors Noel Rodriguez Alvarez after missing boy's remains were discovered. Everman, Texas. This is written by Dan Godwin on fox4news.com. The community in Everman is honoring the life of a little boy whose remains were discovered last week, years after he disappeared. Had he lived, it's believed that Noel Rodriguez Alvarez would have been a 4th grader at Bishop Elementary. 2 of the school's students wrote a letter to the principal asking that he be honored during the school's annual awards ceremony. The principal called it a remarkable gesture of compassion and care by the 2 students, so she printed out a certificate paying tribute to Noel. Beautiful. On Thursday, students, teachers, and staff at the school, along with members of the Everman community and the entire Everman Independent School District, were asked to wear light blue in his memory. Not far away at Everman Memorial Park, a temporary memorial was also set up with flowers, balloons, stuffed animals, and other items to honor Noel. The city of Everman said the memorial will remain in place until he is laid to rest in his final resting place. Kiddos have to deal with their emotions, man. It's and having to do that at such a young age, I applaud those 2 students for wanting to do that, and I hope that it is healing for them and for the other members of the community. I don't think that there is any healing that is deserved or will happen in the case of his mom. Where is she? Cindy Rodriguez Singh, who has been found to be incompetent for trial and is being treated, but has been charged in the boy's murder. I don't know about any charges for the stepdad, Arshdeep Singh, but that is that. Second thing I wanted to bring to you was this article From the New York Times, written by Harubi Miko and Anusha Baya, New York to review press credentialing after Mangione backers' comments. Guys, I don't understand people sometimes, but here we go. Mayor Zoran Mamdani's office on Monday said it would review the process for approving press credentials following inflammatory comments that some of Luigi Mangione's supporters made outside the Manhattan Criminal Courts building. The statement from the mayor's office came after Mr. Mangione appeared briefly in court on Monday, and more than a dozen of his supporters. Why are you supporting a murderer? Alleged murderer. Come on. More than a dozen of his supporters, some with press credentials, attended. One of them, Lena Weisbrot, stood in front of cameras outside the courthouse after the hearing with a badge around her neck that read press. In her comments, she said the children of Brian Thompson, the healthcare executive whom Mangione is accused of killing, were better off without their father. Nobody's better off without their father, by the way. Ever. A reporter from the Daily News, Molly Crane Newman, posted videos of the comments on social media, drawing outrage in a few cases, support. So, yeah, like some of his supporters are getting press credentials so that they can attend the hearings, and then they're out there full on spewing a bunch of crap like children are better off without their fathers who that guy murdered, allegedly. Kills me. If you want to read the rest of the article, it is linked down below. Now, lest we move on, we've got some good news to go through as well. Wanda, you got a little longer one for us tonight, right? Wait a minute, Wanda. Thank you. We just have to have not transmission. However, you're going to have to edit that out. We have to have transition music. We talk about bad news all the time. Let's talk about some good news. Okay, Wanda, transition away, will ya? Oh, that's nice. Well, there's more. Oh, Wanda. Who is that singing in there? Who is that strapping young man? That's your great-grandson? How old are you? He's 28 years old. Wow. Beautiful voice. You've brought in the crew today. Thank you, Wanda. All right. Brought to us by the Good News Network, written by Andy Corbley. The Louvre announces Mona Lisa will have her own building and major redesign to ease tourist scrum. Well, hallelujah. Honestly, this one touches a button for me. I've been to the Louvre a couple of times, maybe 3 times, and it is just so annoying. Like, I'm sorry to be that guy, but it's just annoying. Everybody who wants to see the Mona Lisa, I want you to see the Mona Lisa. I'm not like a gatekeeper for great art. Come on. But, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. So here's a rendering of the Grand Colonnade redesign, which will have its own entrance, which would be great. Okay, the world's most visited museum has made the wise decision to move the world's most famous painting to a separate wing where clamoring hordes pushing for a glimpse can stay separate from the rest of the art-loving public. In a statement announcing major structural changes to the Louvre in Paris, administrators revealed that the Mona Lisa will have her own 33,000 square foot exhibition space. It means that people looking to see the famous Gioconda will not necessarily have to pass through or even visit the rest of the Louvre. They will be spared the extra time waiting in line and can get in, take their selfies, and get out. Meanwhile, those who wish to see the hundreds of thousands of other pieces among the galleries will be spared the extra waiting time in line from those queuing only for the purpose of seeing La Mona Lisa. It's a superb compromise and one that will also come with a $1 billion renovation aimed at reducing congestion all over the Louvre and modernizing the massive building's infrastructure. Guys, like I said, I've been there a couple times. Every time I've been there, there's a ginormous line. The last time I was there was September of 2024. And I had walked along the Seine with our daughter. I had crossed that very footpath right there, that very footbridge right there, to show her, like, just to spend a little time. And then, we looked at the line, said, nah, it's okay. And then we walked up the street a little bit more, crossed back over, and then proceeded up to the tower, which was the purpose for us being there anyway. But I just wanted to show her the Louvre. It would have been great, but it's okay. Now, the next time, I don't know the next time I'm in Paris, maybe never, but hopefully I'll be able to go in there and just enjoy myself walking around. I've never seen the Mona Lisa in person, and it is something that I wouldn't mind seeing. I just, I don't want to pay the price of waiting in a line. That's the way I feel about, like, Disneyland. Yeah, I wouldn't mind going on Thunder Mountain or whatever it is. Space Mountain, is that what it is? I wouldn't mind doing any of those things. I just don't want to spend 2 hours in a line with other people. So I won't be doing that. That's just kind of my deal. All right. Those are your headlines. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Just real quick to wrap out the day. Frida Peephole says, it should be, it's depends, if you catch my drift. But very nice. Very nice. Wendy says, I sent a question to 3 questions, but it was about a past trial in Pennsylvania, but maybe it wasn't allowed. Of course it was allowed. It was a question. I just get to choose the order in which I answer the questions. I got that question, Wendy. Don't even worry about it. It's on the list. It's on the list. Emmy says we went to Las Vegas for the old honeymoon. That seems like a great place too. Patricia Burns says, Gavin, honeymoon comes from the Middle English, and it means the happy couple would be brought enough mead made of honey to last 1 month or 1 moon to help the couple conceive. True story. I had no idea. Interesting. Very, very interesting. See if there's anything else. Frida says, my ex and I absconded to Ohio to get married and went to Lake Hope State Park for the prelude to the ensuing disaster. Well, I'm very sorry for that. Looks like we got Seal Beach, California. I saw Mooney and went, in my mind said, Honey Mooney. The Only Mooney says, what is a tourist scrum? Well, scrum is like there's just so much action. There's just so much action. And the lines for the Mona Lisa are long. Let's see what the word scrum definition actually is. A scrum, no, that's not what it is. Tourist scrum is an informal slang term used to describe a disorderly, densely packed crowd of sightseers and visitors. That's what Uncle Google says anyway. Let's see if there's anything else. Nope. Looks like that is the end, and it's good because we have been together for 1 hour and 38 minutes and 36 seconds. But before we go, just one last pitch, guys. One last pitch. That tonight is the deadline at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. That is the deadline. You are at the end, my friends. How much time do we have actually left? Let's look at it. We have 7 hours, 19 minutes, and just a few short seconds for you to get in to the giveaway for the Omega Seamaster, which is a beautiful watch. I love this watch so much. And I just hope one of you really enjoy it. So this is brought to you as a thanks for all of the support you give me by going over there, purchasing some limited edition merch or a digital download. It gets you automatically entered, and it supports my channel. Thank you very much for Fan of Them, for partnering with me on this, and good luck. And thank you for the support. Also, remember that you can always reach me at my website, gavinfish.com, which looks like this. Lots of Crime Cod articles. There's merch there. There's ways to contact me. There's my blog that I occasionally write. Ways to support me and to support my crew are available as well. And of course, if you click on the little fishy icon up there, up in the corner, these are the ways that you can support me, by the way. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can buy Autumn a coffee, our lead moderator. But if you click on that little fishy, that will take you over to the tank, the fish tank on Facebook, where you are always welcome to join and talk about things true crime. Thanks so much for spending your time with me tonight. I will be back tomorrow. We were going to have Elizabeth on tonight, but it's going to be tomorrow night. So Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime is going to be joining us tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope you guys will join me there. And until then, I bid you adieu, and I hope to see you then. Take care of yourselves.